consortium what to do, what not to do. But if we are going to brainstorm on who the potential interested entities are going to be part of the consortium, we really need to assess kind of what kind of things we are thinking.
Yeah.
This is why that was my thinking when I brainstormed these ideas.
Actually, one more thing I add, as university, where we come from, what interests the administrators to contribute to something like this? I would say professorships, scholarships, fellowships. These are the things that, and also centers, which is that these are the things that a university would be interested. If you tell the administrator, we have few professorship, we offer this, or we have scholarship, fellowship, they would be very happy to engage in this. But and that's really, we need as a value proposition if we go to our higher ups.
I certainly agree. And not being from a university, I guess I would have guessed you would have added research and development dollars and grants and things like that.
Which is through that research center that Sama is really engages, which is something that normally we can't do individually. It's something that needs all of us together.
Right. And that was my idea with this research park or whatever you want to call it. Obviously, if DCG would love to have the research park right here. It's unlikely, but okay. And I'm sure Virginia, they would like to have it over there in Blacksburg.
No, we'll
find it out. We'll put it somewhere in between, but yeah.
Wherever.
So what Sam is saying, the meeting's here, therefore the center has to be here too. I think that's what
No,
you're
that's not what I'm saying. We know for a fact that not very much is going to be built in Richmond. So.
It has to be somewhere that you can
so
build.
it has to be nearby.
Isn't that
Okay, elaborate already. Are you talking about applied research, or are you talking fundamental research?
I'm talking more.
They're doing fundamental research.
Exactly. So my idea. So let me just clarify and let you go. So the two ideas that I suggested for specific facilities they have both components.
Okay.
So, for example, critical hit flags is an area where there is always, that's the number one area of new fuel development, and so there is a lot of research, but at the end of the day, all vendors have to qualify their fuel.
Yeah, I call that applied research.
So that's applied research, and and then the same thing with isotope production. Obviously there is a million things that we as universities like to learn, but at the end of the day, we can actually produce the isotopes and sell them. That is also applied,
Well, if it's a reactor, it could be multi-use. It could be. That's right.
There are certain commercial, there are some types of isotope production that commercial thermal reactors are not particularly well suited for. But to your question on life extension beyond 60 to 80, I think that is an area where there's reasonable potential for providing industry leadership, just based on the vintage of facilities in Virginia and the already stated intention to study that. It wouldn't mean we would be exclusively in a leadership position there, but certainly sharing a national leadership position, and thereby, I guess, would probably also have an international leadership position.
Can I add something to this? We are already thinking of there's going to be a tech center next to Jefferson Lab.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we are talking about establishing an R&D mainly with respect to accelerated living systems, but that will also address the issue of the heat exchanger, critical heat exchanger, and also the isotope development and production as part of that area we have been talking about. And actually we are having a roundtable discussion at the upcoming ANS meeting in Chicago on the isotope aspects using the LINAC technologies which we have in the state. So this will be a session on Monday, August 25th, 5 to 7 p.m. And as you know, we're already developing the programs, the workshops, international workshops, so on with the ADS as well as thorium utilization, which VNEC is already part of it. Yeah, I think some of these ideas are already being pushed along. I think we need to.
Don, I don't know if it was your intention to come out of this meeting with a concise final value proposition, but I've heard some good ideas here. It sounds like there's so much that it needs a smaller group to focus on boiling it down to a concise encapsulation of these ideas that have been presented.
It was my hope that we could do that, during this discussion, we could come up with some ideas, put them together, encapsulate them, have everybody see them, but also identify organizations as a result of what we were discussing here. Sort of really a carry-on, because at our last meeting, Dave, as you know, we actually identified some 16 or 18 organizations that we thought were appropriate. And we have a list of them in your handout that for consideration to be on the consortium board. Yeah, this international conference on isotopes, for the first time, the United States is taking a leadership position. This is the first time the international conference has been held in the United States. And I think it's finally a push to try to acknowledge and recognize we need a better approach to isotope production than just relying upon other countries who don't seem to always be able to meet our schedule or need.
I talked to Agneta at WNA also about having a symposium here in Richmond. I first tried to push for a World Nuclear University to be held here, and that was a harder reach. But she said maybe some of the smaller programs they could have here in Richmond or here in Virginia. So WNA is another one.
So what was the problem of on-board nuclear?
They want to move.
From
They are
London?
Oxford. They are
It's
in
normally
Oxford.
Oxford and London.
And
So
actually, so historically, the World Nuclear University is rotated
Yeah, they-
different, but I think that the logistics of doing that appear to be
Too expensive.
too much. So it's just easier to have it in a place that is well suited for that, such as Oxford, and just do it there every year. That's what they decided.
Oh.
Obviously, yeah.
So for now, we take that as a maybe. Maybe we should.
I work with her on a lot of things, getting ready to go on our board. I'll push her as much as we need to get her to acknowledge and recognize the unique application of Virginia. I mean, it already comes back to the statute is we're supposed to make the Commonwealth a national and global leader in nuclear energy, serve as an interdisciplinary study, research, and information resource for the Commonwealth on nuclear energy issues. So if you look at that, that's pretty broad. And if you look at all the activities we're talking about from nuclear science technology, that clearly allows us to acknowledge and recognize Virginia is uniquely qualified to be that entity. I have 6 major topics that you brought up. I may not have gotten them all. Randy, were you taking notes too there?
Well, I think that you've got these 6. Yeah.
So what's major focusing on?
Do you have other points that you want to bring up that you think are maybe, I'm sorry, what did you say, Ms. Sam?
Now, did you summarize the 6 topics?
Yeah, I just have addressing the licensing process, applied research and its results for the universities, things such as professorships, scholarships, research and development, addressing license renewal as a minimum as a co-leader, isotope reduction through other activities, and then possibly doing smaller programs in the World Nuclear University here in Virginia. That's the 6 I had. I may have missed something. Did you get something?
Those, from the discussion here, those are the 6 that I saw. In addition to some of the,
I didn't hear you say policy, which I thought was
Right.
kind of a unique
Yeah.
insight.
Yeah, they think tank.
So we're located right next to CSIS in Washington, and they already have a nuclear program running. So Virginia could be a participant there.
Mhm.
And George Mason being very close to Washington and having a focus on policy space. And there are elements of the U.S. jobs situation, for example, where because of 1, 2, 3 agreements, I mean, you could see this feedback loop where Virginia driving focused thoughts, being a center for thought leadership on national policy, could influence national decisions, which could bring jobs to Americans in many states. as opposed to that, the track that we're on is going to drive many, many jobs to Russia, China, some other countries, because of our ability to work through some of these 1, 2, 3 agreements with some countries that are developing nuclear power.
So to that effect, actually, where I am in Parliament, we have School of Department of Science and Technology and Societies and the School of Public and International Affairs. And with my activities, we're trying to put together a graduate program in nuclear non-professional policy, which is for training engineers on policy. We have had interaction with George Washington University. They do have nuclear policy, but the opposite is really providing some technology to policymakers. And that's very different. And I think that to your statement, I definitely was supportive of that, because I think we really have to engage in this discussion. Because that's part of the problem we have, because people who make decisions tend to be limited knowledge about technology, and therefore they get their information from somewhere, I guess, but it's limited. So that's actually one thing we are trying to do. I've noticed where we are because of the fact that the location and proximity to the government.
And there seems to be, the other policy nexus besides jobs and industry and for the state and for the country is the climate policy. So as more and more renewables come in, it's going to need to be mixed with other things to provide reliability around the clock.
I think that's one of the biggest benefits from when you interface with policymakers is education about what a nuclear power can do, how it can fit to address some of these climate change issues that we're dealing with. Just for instance, that Sama passed out a copy of this executive order that other governors signed last week establishing the Virginia Energy Council. That's going to help draft the Virginia Energy Plan. This is not public knowledge yet, but one of our members is going to be on the board. We only had a nuclear person that was going to be that's going to serve on the council because I happened to be working with this group and knew that, hey, we need to have someone from the nuclear industry on there. But there's a lot of other, you have representatives from the renewable energy groups and from every other interested industry, in your ears about why you need to go in this direction or that direction. And I think from interfacing with, policy people, that's the biggest benefit that I can see. So I want to make sure we keep that in mind as we move forward.
And our physical proximity of Virginia really makes us uniquely capable to interface with all the things that other entities and organizations that support our ultimate goals are doing too, like the American Nuclear Society, so forgive me for falling to that. But all the things we're doing with Congress and our leadership series and our knowledge series by sharing information on nuclear science technology with the legislative and administrative assistants, the activities we're conducting on the Hill for 1, 2, 3 agreements, the 10 activities, and especially the activities for getting a sense of Congress related to making our nuclear power plants national assets. So that kind of leadership that can come out of Virginia becomes that thought leadership that can be reinforced by being close to Washington, which you can't get from the vast majority of the American Nuclear Society other than the Virginia local section and maybe the Washington local section being right here to do that. So I think that's an important facet of where we can leverage all this capability within the state of Virginia to really make a difference both for the state and nationally. Okay, now I have 7. When you have the policies, all the stuff. I've got like 7 or 8 subsets of the number of policies.
Don,
Yes,
just a
Derek.
couple of comments concerning the list. I just want to make sure that we don't lose Sama's comment about the need for both the fundamental research and the applied research. I think the list mentions specifically applied research, which I agree and applaud. But I think the fundamental research is a component of that as well as the commercialization aspects. I think you need all 3 of those. The other thing that I think is really important, and we mentioned it in several places, but the partnership to me is one of the reasons that that I'm here anyway, because I think that we can